Okay, now that we've gone through and did our previous foldable, okay, on learning what to write down for rational word problems, now we're actually going to compute. So get out your foldable and let's go. Okay, so for this problem in your other foldable, you've already determined the key words, what you're being asked to find, and what operations and why. Right now, for our current foldable in computation, we are going to note the expression, we're going to solve it, and we're going to explain the process. Okay, so I will choose 3 different colors for each one since there was some confusion on that before. Okay, so these are the 3 things that we need to identify for our notes. The expression, we're actually going to solve it, and then we're also going to explain the process. So Marcus rides his bike uphill 20 4/5 yards. He then descends 12 1/4 yards. What is Marcus's new location? So we've already determined that we're going to add. Okay, we're going to add a negative. So our expression for this that you need to write down is we are going to take 20 4/5, and descending means subtracting, but we're going to add a negative. Okay, so now let's go ahead and solve it. We're going to subtract these numbers because they are different signs. Okay, so mark in your notes different signs. We're going to subtract, but our answer is going to take the sign of the bigger number, which in this case is the 20, so our answer is going to be positive. Okay, now let's go ahead and solve. We've got 20 4/5, and remember we're going to subtract because they are different signs. So here we have to take them and find a common denominator between the 5 and the 4, so that will be 20. So let's change this to 20, and this one's going to be 12. So let's adapt. The 4 goes into 20 times 5. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 goes into 20, which is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. So now we can actually go ahead and subtract. Subtract the whole numbers. 20 minus 12, that's 8. And then subtract your numerators. 16 minus 5. That gives us 11 over 20. Okay? So now when it comes to explaining the process, we are explaining why we are adding. So whatever we wrote on the previous notes, we are fitting that into our explanation. But we're going to add the expression to it. So this is what I mean. We have to fit and tie everything together. So we're going to start out by saying, I added negative 12 1/4 yards to the 20 4/5 yards because Marcus was descending. I got the answer of 8 11/20 as Marcus's new location. The last thing that we need to say is if you know that the answer is positive or negative. So we would say, I know the answer is positive because Marcus didn't descend the total yards that he started with. Okay, so obviously 20 and 4/5 is further away from 0 than 12 and 1/4. So that's why our answer is going to be positive. Okay, let's move on. All right, so taking a look at this one, we have the quarterback gained 5 1/3 yards, but lost 15 2/5. So that is going to be 5 1/3 plus a negative instead of subtraction, 2/5. Okay, let's go ahead and solve this. So again, we have two different signs, so we're going to again subtract. So let's write that down. Subtract and take the sign of the bigger number. So our answer is going to be negative, okay? So just don't forget about that. Now let's find a common denominator. So let's put the biggest number on top, okay, when we finally get around to subtracting. So common denominator is going to be 15. Now 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6. All right, so since they had different signs from the beginning, we're going to subtract. Subtract your whole numbers. 15 minus 5 is 10. And then subtract your numerators. 6 minus 5 is 1. In order to explain the process, I'm actually going to, well, I was going to say type it out, but I won't be able to type out the fractions. So we are going to say that the quarterback had a total of 10 1/15 of gains and losses. Okay, so let's get to writing. The quarterback had a total of 10 1/5 yards of gains and losses because, now this is where you fit your expression in, because when I added a loss of 15 2/5 yards to 5 1/3 yards I found that, that the quarterback had more losses than gains. Okay, so for number 3, go ahead and write down the expression and go ahead and solve it on your own. When you're ready for the explanation process, then I can help you. Otherwise, pause your screen and write down the expression and try to solve it, please. Okay, so your expression should have been negative 31 8/9 plus negative 10 1/5, or I'm sorry, plus a negative 10 1/5 because he's going further down. When you're solving this expression, though, they're both negative numbers, so you're going to actually add them together and then just realize that your answer is going to be negative. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is make sure you find a common denominator between 9 and 5. And then when you actually add the numerators and the whole numbers together, you actually get an improper fraction for the 49 over 45. So we actually took a whole number and added that whole number to the whole number. Added the whole to the whole number, and that's how we ended with negative 42 and 4 over 45. So the explanation for this one is, all right, for the explanation, the scuba diver descended a total amount of 42 and 4/45 feet because I added negative 10 1/5 feet to the negative 31 8/9. Since the scuba diver was going further down into the water, I knew my answer was going to be negative.